Now, there was chaos at Heathrow this weekend. 1,300 flights were cancelled and nearly 200,000 passengers stranded after a fire started at an electricity substation at the UK's biggest airport. Where was the boss as the fire raged? Well, in bed, apparently. According to the papers, Chief Executive Thomas Woldbye, who is paid around £3.2 million last year, apparently hit the sack and left his deputy in charge, which led to the airport's closure. So should he have rolled his sleeves up, worked through the night? How do we feel about it, Gloria? There were a lot of disgruntled passengers, clearly.
Obviously, 200,000 of them, that's a lot. And it's something that has cost millions and millions of pounds in the process. Look, I'm quite pragmatic about this because no matter what job you're in, it doesn't matter what you're doing, if you are the boss and anything goes wrong and you have a crisis, you know that the buck is going to stop with you. And it's your responsibility, no matter how it plays out underneath in terms of who did what and when. And I just think, how could he sleep? I mean, if I was in charge of an enormous thing like that, and this fire is going on and the airport is closed, I don't think I could go to bed and sleep anyway. So I find it quite extraordinary that he didn't hang around, no matter who he had, his assistant, teams, whatever. I just feel that the boss in a dilemma like that and a crisis should have been there. At 3.2 million a year. I don't know what that could be like, but anyway.
Well, to put it on, I mean, we're all saying he was asleep. That's what we are assuming. Maybe he was at home with the phone in his hand, ready to go. Yeah. Who knows? But the story goes, according to insiders at Heathrow, they did say that apparently sort of the big bosses are split into two gold commands, as it was called. And a Heathrow spokesperson had told The Standard that protocols were followed by Mr. Woldbye, and his whole senior leadership team were exactly where they were supposed to be at this point. So there were two teams. One was working, one was at home on standby to take over.
One is
he
the boss.
Was in the team that
one
was
is
on standby. No, absolutely.
The other one is
absolutely.
an assistant boss.
So just to place it, but it's like you say, if the I'm sure he wasn't sleeping. Maybe he was. We don't know that, but he wasn't on site, and I think that is clearly what is riling
on site, and then he went back. But my point is, I think that if you're an airport with such a major thing that can happen, the thing for me is if you fail to prepare to fail. So they failed to do whatever tests and checks they should have done. They should have done these checks for, if there's an outage at any reason, not just a fire, but we've been seeing a lot about in the press how things are going to, grids going off and grids going down. Where's our preparation for that? And I think that, if anything, they should be held account for not preparing to know what the next step is, or have a tree of, if this happens, then we do that. If this happens, we do that. But it didn't seem like they knew what the other person was doing.
Communication being there.
Yeah, I mean, I think... God, you're all going to hate me for this, but I feel slightly sorry for him that everyone's calling for his head, basically.
I mean, what happened someone who's being paid £3.2 million?
No, I do. It doesn't matter what they're being paid. He didn't do anything on purpose. They thought they had it sorted. They'd never experienced anything on it. They had done tests, but never to the grand scale that it happened, from what I've read. Also, you do have to trust your team. Maybe they thought if he'd been up all day till 11:30 at night, it'd be better for him to get rest, come back in the morning, which he did. And also... are we screaming because 200,000 people, and I know it's horrendous to have your flights cancelled, miss your flights, miss going to some event or whatever, but how much more would we have been screaming had they not shut it down and those airplanes had crashed, or, then we really would. Yeah. So he's kind of, for me, it's kind of he's damned if he doesn't, damned if he don't, you know what I mean? And so I don't know, I think we're all so ready. As soon as anybody, whether it's him or anyone nowadays, as soon as one person makes a mistake, media and everyone goes, should be fired, need to lose their job. And I'm thinking, guys, give them a chance and a break. We can all make mistakes in
life. I think most people want to say, do your job.
They should do the job that they're paid a lot of money for.
Well, I think they did to the best of their ability at that time.
Except that we were told today that there was power there. So it's lack of communication between the substation and whoever was in charge at the airport.
The National Grid have said, yes, exactly, there was power. So, but again, I know this was an unprecedented sort of an incident, wasn't it? So they've never quite experienced it. But like we say, I certainly know, because I'm scared of flying. I want to think every single box is ticked on every single safety front. So that I want to know that, well, you do know if that breaks down, there is something else that takes over.
Yeah.
So if there's any fault, I think it's those. It's like you say, it's the communication. But yeah, I think it's just because so many people were disgruntled, upset and everything else that it's been quite a fiery discussion.
And something like £88 million.
Yeah, a lot of money, yes, my goodness. Well, from airport bosses to CEOs of the future, one entrepreneurial young girl apparently charges her dad for doing jobs around the house using a contactless card reader. I'll do the dishes, beep. But as one parenting expert says, paying your kids to do chores is actually setting them up for a lifetime of unrealistic expectations. So where do you stand? Is wages for washing up just simply damaging, Brenda? We shouldn't be doing it.
I don't agree with the unrealistic expectations. So what, your expectation is that your child doesn't get paid for doing anything? They do stuff and then they don't get paid. I don't think that's, you know, the right way to go. I personally think that it gives responsibility from a young age to a child of how to understand money, and that if you do this, you get paid for it. Doesn't matter whether if it's, you know, it might be washing the dishes, but that could be your electricity bill. You've got to pay those things when you get to a certain age and when you've got your own place. And I think it wouldn't do any harm. I don't understand the card reader. That's taking it a bit far.
Well, that's what we are now.
I'd rather see the cash. Show me the money, show me the cash, so that I can appreciate the value of things. I don't see any harm with that. I actually asked if I could have, like, chores to get extra pocket money because, you know, I was a 12-year-old and I want to buy things, but my family didn't have to just give me money. So let me put that with that.
And my only thing with it, as far as household chores, if they're going to do extra chores, like if they said to me, Mum, if you give me a couple of quid, I'll wash the car, then I'd go, OK, great. But if it's household chores, like making your bed, doing the dishwasher, all of that, I don't want my kid to sit there and go, well, I'm not doing it unless you give me a fiver. I'll be like, well, it's your bed, so it won't be made unless you make it. Yeah. Because I think that's growing them up to have respect for where they live, respect for you, and respect for the house that they live in. I don't necessarily think they should get paid for that, but outside of that, then yes. But the thing that, very quickly, so we're running out of time, the thing I was talking about before, the debt-proofing your kid, was a programme I did years ago. And it was about, for a month, oh, there you go. It was for a month where you have to write down every single penny you spend on your child. You have to write it down, work out how much money you spend, and then give them that money in cash. And they then have to pay for every single thing that they want for that month. And it was amazing because my boys were, there you go, my boys were older at the time, and they always wanted to go, oh, I want football cards when I come home from school, or I want these football boots, or I want this football, whatever. And all of a sudden, when they had to pay for it, they had to donate 10% to charity and save 10%, and then the rest
was there.
So if they wanted, you know, a takeaway that night, they had to pay for it. And honestly, the amount of times those boys didn't want a takeaway once they had to pay for it, they never bought football cards ever again. And the shop that I used to try and get them to go to buy shirts, they'd go, I'm not wearing that, Mum. The eldest came in and went, I got 3 shirts for £10 in that shop. And I went, hello? And I cannot tell you. And I had people going, I can't afford to give my kids that cash. And I said, but you've written it down that that's what you're spending on them every month.
All I would say is
teaching them the value of money.
Christine would know this because in Northern Ireland we were taught to work. And I think that you can teach children to work or give them, you know, if it's incentive, couple of quid or something, fine. And I also think it teaches them the value of money. And if they work for it, it's work, it's a bit of money. No harm in it, I don't think.
Shane Jr. tweeted there.
Oh, don't tell me. I'm going to take his phone off him. Yeah. I know he's 36, but he's grounded.
Well, no, he wrote, debt-proof your kids. That'll be funny. So apparently he was very much looking forward to hear what you'd say about that. Did it really work out in the end?
No, it didn't. As they got older, now he's rubbish with money.
Absolutely, there you go. For a very short time. Very short time at work.